Hi, welcome to Shree's weight loss journey, and it's a spiritual one. Okay, it is hot, 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 hot. Okay, so we decided to get out because anytime it gets so hot, the best thing to do is to try to find someplace that's cool, right? And the least expensive place to be cool in my ecosystem is in my car. Okay? Alright. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure just about where I'm headed, but we're getting out. Okay? We're getting out. And that's the most important thing. I was watching this one reading, right, where you know how people can do word magic, right? And this lady was talking about how a qualified applicant where two people had to make the decision on the applicant, and the person, everything lined up well as a good fit for this person, right? The work history was strong. The FICO score was passable. Their experience in regards to the job was well, and all of those check marks were made, right? But the point is how word magic works. The word magic came out of the other person's mouth who didn't want this particular applicant for whatever reasons that she did not say or he did not say, right? But basically stated, this person deserves a better job than what we have, than this position. You see what I'm saying? And this was during a tarot card reading, right? So if HR was actually going to a tarot card reader and getting assistance for placements of applicants, right? We're talking about a world where a lot of people are placed in the positions that they're actually, better for. And I talked about that in a video that I haven't posted yet. And so when HR decides, even when they look into a crystal ball to even find out, does this person really want the job? And they're like, yeah, they want the job, right? And then HR goes, nah, I think they deserve something better. Like, yeah, well, they might deserve something better down the line, but right now, they pulled cards and found out that this person was in a Five of Pentacles, right? So this is another outdated, conception that we are all out here able to pick and choose the jobs that we want, especially during a time when jobs are few and good workers, good stable workers, good reliable workers, are also few. Because a lot of times, yes, there are people, there's a lot of transients out here, right? And some people will say, yes, the transients are the ones that need the job. Well, sometimes the transients like me in transients, right? Like myself, I couldn't even imagine myself, being a hobo, a person that wasn't, with a home base, right? You could still be a hobo and at least have a home base. But some people, they're not like that. So if you talk about people who have a good work history, and then you want to say, well, in our society, people can't obtain, stability because of the job market. Okay. That doesn't mean that you're one of the architectures of our society. See, the architectures of our society, they're the ones, that decide who goes where when, right? And even though HR might think that they are the architecture of the workplace, and they hadn't worked their way up from the ground up to the top, no, you're not the architecture. All you know is what you learned about the hiring process, maybe a little bit about psychology, a little bit. That's not the main emphasis of HR. Right? HR basically, they just gather information and data on what makes somebody a qualified person. But when HR starts going around here disqualifying people, then I have a problem. I have a problem. When the disqualification is, well, according to my feelings and, my psychology, I really feel like this person needs to have a better job than the one we had to offer. And we shouldn't take this person as an employee, for their own good. Right? I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wait a minute. You're going to tell me that a Queen of Wands, now we all know who a Queen of Wands is. A Queen of Wands is a very resourceful, dynamic, independent, gets her shit done type of person. That the Queen of Wands that applied for this position in the Five of Pentacles, right? And then going to turn around and say that the Queen of Wands deserves to have a better job. Okay. Then my mind went directly to, okay, don't a lot of people have to get their foot in the door? Right? You get your foot in the door, that then you try to, see if there's other avenues available for promotion. Right? This HR person made it seem like, well, if she gets hired in at this position, that she's going to stay there, forever. And she's not going to be happy. That's how she tried to make it seem. And I couldn't believe that. I'm like, in this day and age, who are you? And then my mind directly went to, oh, this is how they systematically implement racism, discrimination, pass judgment. And I was just like, and prejudice, right? Because this lady had prejudged this person, not based off of the information that they have, right? And they even tried to verify the information. They, if you verify, yes, they have a good work stability. right? So anyway, I couldn't believe it. And the reader went on to try to, to even bury, the fact that, they're so considerate. And they started giving, well, what if, and all of these, imaginary, even went so far as to say, give a food analogy, like, this person, deserves to have, a 4-star restaurant meal. They may not want to go to a buffet. And it's like, what the hell? How do you know this person's eating preference? If you're going to give an analogy about a 4-course, this person liking a 4-star meal, then did you go and try to check their spending habits to see if there's any, conclusive data that this person actually would prefer to have a 4-star meal than to have, an all-you-can-eat buffet? I was a little appalled because I love buffets. I do. Especially if they're buffets that, keep your food, fresh and well, and well maintained. Okay? Because, there are some people who will try to do a buffet and they don't have enough customers, and and that's a big problem right there. Not all buffets are the same, but people who who frequently go to a certain buffet or certain buffets, and maintain a certain degree of a sanitary type of shields, because you don't want people picking all over the food. You don't want people coughing and and all of this other stuff that can happen when you're dealing with a buffet style. And I already told you about HR at Amazon, how corrupt they were, trying to finagle the work schedule just so one of their favorites, or maybe they got paid under the table, can get some OT, and I was just like, where are the safeguards in this situation? Why aren't there safeguards? And then where's the oddity? I know for a longest time, a lot of people in HR, because they're the go-to people when it comes to a business, as far as hiring, as far as, firing. They are the go-to people. But what happens when HR is corrupt? And a lot of people in HR, who found out, just how powerful, the HR position is, they decided that they were going to occupy, these positions. Anyway, I seen this mini trampoline, right? And at this guy, they always got something out there to sell. So I think they go around and they try to see, different things that people throw away that they could sell. And he wanted like half price for that mini trampoline. It would still work, but my main thing is I wanted, something that would help my dog keep cool. And I was thinking about putting her bed on top of the trampoline, or not even a bed, just like a carpet or something on top of the trampoline. When I wasn't using it, she could lay on it, but I don't think she would lay on it anyway, And then he was trying to tell me how it was low impact and stuff. And I told him, I said, look, I have a treadmill. I have a treadmill, And he was like, okay, well, then $10, And I was like, let me see if I had $10. So anyway, I showed him that, I had some cash, right? And that was to give him the opportunity to say, I'll take the cash that you have, right? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay, good luck, good luck. And I can't believe that I went and threw away that, I buy them often because they're low impact, and, there is a certain amount of energy that you can get just by, jumping up and down, right? Even the Africans know that. That's why, most of the rituals, most of the things they do, they jump. Yeah? Okay. So now, getting back to what I was talking about. When we're talking about all things considered, right? Well, yeah, you have to consider, do you want, a dependable person that's going to come in there and fill the position, when you need them to be there, first of all. Second of all, does the position really require a lot of training, right? Meaning that you got to invest a lot of training into that position, which is one thing that I think a lot of companies don't take under consideration when they decide they're going to hire a male, right? A male is not really listening to all of the things that could, jeopardize the company from liability, civil liability, right? They may think, oh, it's better to have a man in this position, rather than say a woman, right? But then they get a man in that position, and then this man ends up being, a cruel liability for the company because he's sexually harassing various women in and out of the company, right? In the company and the clients of the company. Okay? They don't take that under consideration, right? That's one reason why women are usually less of a liability. And in this day and age, the sexual harassment can be both male against both male and female, and can happen right in the company bathroom or behind any closed door, or even in a corner. I know this wild story had happened where there was one corner of a warehouse where in the warehouse, the rumor was that these two people were getting it on in an area, a small, all it took was a little nook in a dark, in a you know, in an area of the warehouse. And the only way they even caught those people was because, you know, occasionally HR had to walk around, had to walk the floors. And that's how they found, you know, these people were having sex out there. And then I was watching this other video where this lady was saying that they were going to start creating sensors in the floor, so that now they can actually tell when a person is not at their station. Right? That wasn't at Amazon, but that was at another warehouse. You know, but, you know, in particular, you know, a lot of the men, they want to take these positions where they're not monitored, you know, and, you know, they have to understand what that actually means and why, you know, especially when, you know, you have to hunt them down or put them on a radio, you know, because you can't find them. Anyway, I'm kind of done with talking about, you know, the job market right now. I just kind of want to chill out. About that.